Hello and welcome to the Go Narrative Weekly Storytelling Stream. We've been having a bit of fun here this morning because it seems like Restream has been down a little bit or something. So we've been freaking out going, oh my goodness, are we going to actually even be able to do this today? But it looks like we are. So that is all good news. So if you're an entrepreneur or a marketer, particularly if you're in the tech industry, and you are determined to tell a story that sells, then we have a treat for you today. We are going to run through some proprietary frameworks that we have to help you do just that. And in fact, we are also going to talk about how we came to develop these frameworks. Nothing like a good story, right? So as we dig in here today, there's going to be some of you who are thinking, okay, so, maybe I'm a good storyteller, maybe I'm not a good storyteller, but it's okay, right? When you go and you look at all of the storytelling frameworks out there, most of them, I should say, pretty much all of them, they're really complicated. And if you're a master storyteller, then you figured this stuff out, right? And you don't necessarily need my help today. That being said, I'm going to show you how to deeply connect the stories you tell to your business, which is kind of important for business storytelling. And we're going to show you how to do that in what we believe is a super easy way to do so. So if you are new to storytelling, you are going to get some really, really good tips today to get going. And like I said, if you're if you're familiar with this stuff already, we're going to show you how to make sure that the stories you tell are all aligned and are all deeply connected to your business. So in the next 60 minutes, my goal is to show you that business storytelling is the key to unlocking all of that unrealized profitability that you have. Everything else you've been doing has worked to a point, and you're looking to unlock that much more. Now, as a marketer and entrepreneur myself, I know how much frustration there can be when it comes to anything in business, because there's so much that you have to manage, right? Especially when there's something new that you haven't managed or used before. For over 20 years in corporate America, I had a variety of marketing roles, so I'm very familiar with this. And for the past 5 years, heading up Go Narrative, leading the charge here, and our mission to spread the word of storytelling in business, I've started saying I want to get 100 million business people as confident business storytellers. And how we're going to measure that, we'll figure that out. But there we go. So that's our mission. But for years, and even as a passionate storyteller, I struggled to use storytelling in business. And we're going to talk about that today and hopefully remove some of those frustrations that I experienced for you when you develop an approach to storytelling in business. And quite frankly, it's because you don't have to develop the approach, because we've done it for you. So there's going to be less stress. It's going to be easier for you. It's going to be fun. So you know what it's like. There's a lot to manage, and you might not feel like you've got time for storytelling. We're going to change that today. Okay. You also might have this problem, right? When you think about all of the different channels that you feel like you might need to focus on, for fear of failing if you don't check all the boxes of every single one of those channels. The good news is you don't have to check all those channels. And in fact, you shouldn't be checking all those channels, in particular if you haven't got your story straight first. That's step one. Get that right, and then you can figure out what channels it makes the most sense to tell those stories on. And of course, figure out the right way to tell the stories in each of those channels as you go deeper down the storytelling rabbit hole. Now, like many of you, I used to think that storytelling was reserved for movies, books, and theater. And whilst I've always appreciated a good story, a good movie, a good book, my career was really built through science and technology. And I never really saw storytelling as being a big part of those fields at all. However, I have come to learn that storytelling props up everything in business, from the smallest things to the biggest things. It's connected to everything. And it's not surprising because of what storytelling really, really is. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Don't worry, though, we're not going to talk about a bunch of theory. This is all very, very practical, because that's what I'm all about. Let's get practical. Let's make this stuff happen. So every business, every industry, all communications and marketing, yes, that makes sense at a surface level, but actually you can use storytelling for all sorts of other things in business: internal alignment, employee motivation, partnership development, even problem solving and strategic work. But we're not going to get too far down into the weeds today, because we want to make sure that you walk away with some really useful tools. But stick around and ask questions at the end, because we're happy to go as deep as you want on this stuff. So my mother was a scientist, influenced the science part of what I just said, right? She was a biologist focused in virology and zoology. She taught my sisters and me to ask questions, to develop hypotheses, and test our ideas. We were taught to seek data, facts, and truth. But she was also a poet and an author. So you can imagine we're getting quite a lot of diversity from my mother just there. My father reinforced all this: an electrical engineer who then enjoyed a sales and marketing career spanning 5 decades in the high-tech industry. And through that process, he ended up inadvertently indoctrinating me into the world of high tech. Through Intel, through Silicon Valley, I grew up surrounded by the tales of Silicon Valley, like tales that you wouldn't even believe, right? Part of those tales are nicely captured in Accidental Empires. Really fun read, just fun regardless. But if you want to read about Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and all the crazy stuff that was going on behind the scenes, it's a fantastic book. So my father's influence resulted in me actually getting a computer science degree. But that wasn't the only influence we had. My parents, like my mother was an author, but my parents also read to us voraciously from a young age. In fact, I have this wonderful memory of being curled up on the sofa with my dad and one of my sisters as he read us Lord of the Rings. Not only did he read us Lord of the Rings, he read us this actual copy of Lord of the Rings. This is my mother's 1969 version of the book. The first time all the books were published in one actual physical book itself. So I took the passion for science, followed my mother's footsteps into creative writing with 2 novels that aren't technically published yet. This with life and career and everything, some things have had to kind of take a bit of a side burner for a bit. But wonderful experience writing those. And I followed my father's footsteps into technology. I started my career in Intel's marketing department. Any fans of Red Dwarf in the audience at all? Yes. So this is actually a 2002 photograph from an Intel Counter-Strike gaming event that I helped organize at the Science Museum in London. And yes, that is Lister from Red Dwarf. He doesn't have an H on his forehead, obviously, in this photo. In the early days of my career, I thought storytelling was best suited for presentations, ad campaigns, and messaging, right? Makes sense. I didn't really see it as being something that could be used in other areas of the business. I only saw it about that sort of entertaining aspect of engaging people. And something at the same time that I was discovering was that Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm. It was a popular read at Intel, and my father introduced it to me. I loved how it framed this idea of a chasm, of how businesses would fall into this chasm if they failed to connect with the early majority, which is where most of that rich revenue comes from. You might think you're doing okay with the innovators and the early adopters, doing your financial projections, everything looks great, and then boom, you fall into the chasm and it's game over, right? So Segway is a great example of that. They've kind of clawed their way back out of it, but that would be a really good example. Seeing as storytelling is about connecting people to ideas, and seeing as business is about connecting people to products, This is a match made in heaven. Get your storytelling right, and you're going to get your business right. So without realizing it, I started actually applying storytelling to my everyday work as a way to think about how we get across that chasm. In one early instance, I created this superhero theme for a partner account manager program that we had at Intel. In another, I created a James Bond style sales campaign. This was for Microsoft. You can see clearly there was an influence of storytelling happening in my career. And in fact, that eventually led me to getting recruited internally at Microsoft to be chief storyteller for one of the business divisions, just as I was actually about to leave the company. But the opportunity to get paid to do storytelling made me think, okay, my novels can wait for a bit. I'm going to have some fun doing this in business. Little did I realize, though, that the journey that I was about to embark on would result in me also being able to help others with a big business secret. And that big business secret is business storytelling. It's not about entertainment storytelling at all. Business storytelling and entertainment storytelling might be related because of some common ancestors they have, but they are different. And I'm going to share with you today why it's different and how to use it so you can apply it in your business. At Intel, back in the day, a friend and mentor of mine, Nick Drew, said to me, always find out if somebody's done it first. He was a sales guy, and salespeople are fantastic at taking this approach because they have to wait. They wait in the bushes as they're hunting. A great analogy that I heard from a manager of mine actually at Microsoft. But in other words, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. And I've always kept that in mind. So when I started this chief storyteller role, what did I do? I went out there to see if I could find some wheels to take our organization on the ride, but I couldn't find any. And so this was a huge impact on what my journey was going to be. I did discover that some people have been trying to apply storytelling to business forever, and also as a way to cross the chasm. But there's a problem with how they're approaching it. And it's that entertainment storytelling issue. It'll only get you so far, maybe with a little bit of presentations, maybe if you're making a video. Now, to be clear, there is some really interesting advice out there about storytelling and business, but it didn't give me those frameworks, those wheels I was looking for, the wheels that would enable me to apply storytelling repeatably as a tool in business. So in that exploration, here's a couple of the great books that I read. Nancy Duarte's Resonate. I've actually got 2 copies of this book, one which is signed by Nancy. I had the privilege of meeting her. And Bo Eason, who's storytelling. So Nancy's, by the way, is presentations, if I didn't make that clear. Bo Eason's was about harnessing your personal story for motivation and impact in all of your relationships. But they weren't really the wheel that I was looking for. Now, remember, Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, which is used as a tool for entertainment storytelling. It's one of many entertainment storytelling frameworks, in fact. Some of them, in fact, just the Hero's Journey can be 10, 12, or even a whopping 17 steps long. Phrases like rising and falling action, character arc, the darkest night. Too much heavy lift of new terminology and expertise for busy professionals who are looking at trying to drive a technology business forward or whatever it happens to be. So no matter how many rabbit holes I went down, I just couldn't find a storytelling wheel that really worked for that repeatable application of storytelling in business. Now, as it comes to expertise, as I mentioned, there's this wonderful book by Chip and Dan Heath. Unsurprisingly, they actually do talk about storytelling in Made to Stick. But the point that I wanted to make about Made to Stick was that point about knowledge, the expertise, the curse of knowledge. They coined this wonderful phrase, the curse of knowledge. And essentially what the curse of knowledge means is it's a lot harder and more effort for somebody outside an area of expertise to understand what somebody who's got the expertise understands. Seems pretty logical, doesn't it? Right? And storytelling is no different. all of this rich material that's really useful for story experts who spend all of their time doing storytelling, writing scripts, writing novels, making movies, writing plays, performing in plays. All of those things are deeply, deeply expertise-based knowledge that you have around storytelling. And so if you're not in that group and you're trying to use storytelling, it can be really confusing. How do I use it? What am I going to do? And when you try to do that, you quickly realize that those wheels just don't roll. So I thought to myself, if those don't work, maybe I'm going to have to invent one. But I had a job to do. And so instead of creating some frameworks, I acted as this storytelling interpreter because I had work to do and I had content to create and I had an organization to help with storytelling. And it was good though, because I kept focusing on outside-in customer centricity, and I got the opportunity to go into that expertise state around storytelling, which I was to discover isn't just about the entertainment aspects, but includes things like the brain science and society itself as well. We kept focusing on the hero as the customer, thinking about our customer as being that key person, and not us as somebody who was helping them, but rather focusing on them. It's very easy for companies to focus on themselves. It's that curse of knowledge issue that comes out again. So my team and I created some absolutely terrific, award-winning storytelling, some wonderful videos, some stuff that I'm still proud of to this very day. But it also really helped me understand that storytelling was only being used in business in a very limited number of ways. And they were often these big epic stories, right? These videos, these ad campaigns. But storytelling in business doesn't have to be the big epic stories. It actually, we just had I don't know if that's a power cut or not, but we'll see if the lights can go back on. Well, that was a bit mysterious. We are in a house of IoT here. I'm still a geek to this day with all that Intel background, Microsoft, computer science, and I think we might have a gremlin in our lights, but that's pretty fun. It kind of mixes stuff up. But anyway, storytelling is not just about the big and the bold. It's also about the little moments, getting things to move forward. And that's the power of storytelling, because ultimately storytelling is about how human beings connect. Okay. And if we can get people to connect with us and understand us, and we can create some movement or change in that engagement, in that relationship, then we can use that in business to move the business forward. And then internally, you can use it to align, connect with other employees, with your boss, with your direct reports, with the whole organization. When you get storytelling for business right, you can use it in all of these areas and even more. But I felt like I was just scratching the surface as I started to discover this stuff. And I wanted to go further than just injecting storytelling into business, right? Didn't just want to see it as being limited to the ad campaigns or the videos or whatever. I wanted to make sure that we were making the most of this. But I had a small family at home, so the idea of leaving Microsoft and starting something on my own to focus on creating these frameworks just wasn't on the table at the time. And then everything changed on July 19th, 2015. My family tragedy, my parents were killed in a car crash. I'm not going to go any deeper into this sad tale, but the fact that life was short was never more apparent to me. And unsurprisingly, that was a turning point in my life. And also, when I look back on it, it's a turning point in how we can all think about storytelling in business. Life is short, right? If we spend all our time stuck in the speeds and feeds and the thrash of the details, and we're not bringing that power of storytelling in, then we are limiting what we can achieve in the limited time that we have. So I took this turning point and turned it into Go Narrative, honoring my parents in the best way I knew how, helping you in business with the power of storytelling. That's why I formed Go Narrative. And we've created these business storytelling wheels so you don't have to. Now, the truth is, You don't have to go through all those boxes and check all those boxes, including the latest fancy social media channels. What you need is better storytelling. Storytelling lights everything up. But remember that big misconception about storytelling, that it's just for children, movies, and books. Remember, it's not. Those are just artifacts of what storytelling is really all about. And if some artifacts can be for pure entertainment, some artifacts can be used for business engagement. When you apply storytelling in the right way, your business is going to be more authentic. Your messaging is going to be better. Your executives will be more relatable. Your salespeople will have increased confidence. And ultimately, you're going to be able to generate more pipe and close that pipe more quickly as well. So, sounds pretty good, right? Now, I had seen this power, and I really wanted to make sure that I could spread it with the world. And I'm also realizing right now that our friends on Twitter aren't able to see the stream because of these restream issues that we've been having this morning. So anyway, we're going to keep cracking along. Sorry about that for the Twitter folks today. So those entertainment frameworks are pretty hard to apply to business, right? I'm going to save you that hassle. But even after the founding of Go Narrative, I relied on frameworks. And so we focused on this idea of a strategic messaging foundation as we developed our frameworks, as we developed our approach to strategic narratives. We continued to develop areas I was very familiar with in value propositions, positioning messaging frameworks, and all that good stuff, personas, content journeys. And we still do all that work because it's a part of business storytelling. But the crown jewel was business storytelling and business storytelling frameworks. So we're still going after that. And of course, literature and film have got their own frameworks, but those are just artifacts of what storytelling really is. I wanted to click a bit deeper and then configure storytelling just for business. So storytelling is for more than just movies and books, okay? It's how we make sense of the world, and we all want our customers to make sense of us, don't we? So if we bring this into the mix, then we're going to be in a situation where we have the opportunity to make those types of connections and have that type of impact. So I'm going to see if I can. There we go. Looks like Twitter appears to be online. Not sure what's going on here. The joys and the vagaries of our wonderful entertainment and technology approaches. So it looks like.